Hello and welcome back. In this lecture, we are going to learn about the impact of being heard. As we are learning these impacts, if you have ever been lucky enough to have a conversation where you felt truly heard, please try to recall it for a moment and pause the video and try to remember the sensations and emotions during that conversation. See if you can recognize some of these impacts we are about to discuss. Previously, in the definition of active listening, we said understanding the full message. Understanding the full message of the speaker leads to the feeling of being seen and heard for that person. The feeling of being heard, truly heard, leads to many other positive impacts, but for now, we are going to focus on some of the important ones. The first impact is that a speaker feels recognized as a person, and we should know that recognition is a universal human need. The feeling of being heard reinforces the belief that I matter here, my point of view matters. Also, recognition is often the antidote of feeling stressed, invisible, and uncertain. And you can be the person who can create that kind of magic for others. And by magic, I mean giving people recognition by simply listening to them actively. The second impact is emotional regulation. When a speaker feels they must fight to be understood, their emotions stay high and their body remains in a defensive state. But when active listening happens and they feel understood, there is no longer need to fight. The struggle is over. They can finally feel calm and safe. Active listening reduces the sense of threat in our nervous system and removes the pressure the speaker feels to constantly prove themselves. And if you want to see more precisely how exactly the active listening helps with emotional regulation, you should know that one important step in emotional regulation is noticing the emotion in your body and naming it. And in active listening, we usually reflect back what we have heard and the emotions we have noticed, which can help the speaker recognize and name their emotions. Naming an emotion reduces its intensity, and when we cannot name what we feel, the experience remains vague and unknown. And the unknown often creates additional fear, which makes emotional regulation much harder. Now let's move to the next impact, thinking more clearly and with better structure. In active listening, we usually summarize and reflect back what we have heard. And when speakers hear their own ideas reflected back to them, they can more easily notice gaps and contradictions in their thinking. This can help them refine what they are trying to say. And many people reach much more clear conclusions when they are talking to a good listener. The next impact is accessing deeper and more accurate information. When the listener stays curious, the speakers often begin to share things that they were initially hesitant to say, such as their needs, their fears, and uncertainties. In other words, the speaker moves from the safe version of what they want to say to the authentic version. So this is another gift you can offer to the people around you by active listening, which is creating a space where people can feel safe enough to be vulnerable and authentic. Living an authentic life is a grace because it's the least suffering version of the life you can live. And I personally think it's a blessing to feel safe enough to be truly yourself. And finally, as humans, we all have strong desires and needs to feel important and seen, to be understood, to belong, to feel safe, to be respected, to be connected, and so on. And active listening satisfies many of these needs almost immediately. When people feel that their needs for dignity, love, respect, significance, and being safe are met, they no longer feel the need to protect themselves. And that brings a deep sense of relief. Okay, now let's wrap it up. In this lecture, we have learned about the impact of active listening on the speaker. And the impacts we have discussed are recognition, emotional regulation, thinking more clearly, and supporting the speaker to be their true self and their authentic self. There are also many other impacts we did not discuss in detail, such as better problem solving, not feeling alone, experiencing empathy, feeling safe to admit mistakes, and so on. The intention of this lecture was to show you how powerful active listening is and how influential you can be as an active listener. It can feel almost magical for a speaker to be in a conversation with someone who truly listens. But please don't get me wrong. It's not like a charity. You will benefit more from being an active listener than the speaker. And that's what we are going to learn in the next lecture. And finally, I must say, I feel so proud of all of you for being committed and courageous enough to follow this course and being here to serve your future self and the people around you. See you in the next one.